A look at Wollstonecraft, Vindication of the Rights of Women, Part III, looking at respect and protection. Now, she begins this particular section with what seems like an odd claim, namely that the most respectable women are the most oppressed. Now, today, of course, we generally would see this as an unusual thing to claim, because we think of the most respectable woman as women like Hillary Clinton, Oprah, for example, Michelle Obama. And we don't see them as being oppressed. Far from it, in fact. We see them in positions of great power and authority and wealth, far, far from being oppressed. So what could she possibly mean by that? Well, one way to look at it is in the time she was writing, in the 1700s, the women that were regarded as the most respectable, in the sense of, society respectable, were the most oppressed in the sense that they were, essentially the possessions of their husbands and really did nothing. I mean, they were societal ornaments. Now, today, we probably wouldn't speak of such women as being, respectable in the sense of being worthy of respect, but rather we treat them as the ones that are sort of, looked at and, followed in the press. We could think today of some examples of, celebrities who are, famous for being famous. A past example being someone like Paris Hilton. Although she's been out of the news lately, she was famous simply for being famous. Now, why think that women in such roles, let us take, for example, like supermodels, are the most oppressed? Well, as Wollstonecraft sees it, the women of her time in those positions were being treated as being contemptible. And by being treated this way, they become contemptible. So what's the problem here? Well, as she sees it, a woman who simply occupies those respectable positions, simply being, beautiful and doing nothing, she sees this as a terrible waste. That such a woman might have been physicians, might have regulated a farm, managed a shop, earned their own living. And her view is, which is kind of an interesting point, is that a woman who earns her own bread by fulfilling any duty is more respectable than the most accomplished beauty. And so her point here is one, put forth even today by feminists, namely kind of the clash between a focus on beauty and appearance versus, pursuing a career in which someone does something to earn their own way. And so we see among some feminists today a similar criticism, looking at women who spend all or the majority of their time trying to appeal and be pleasing to men as being, perhaps against their will, in a situation where they're oppressed. They can look at, for example, feminist criticisms of, music videos, of, women in pornography, obviously, etc. And so Wollstonecraft view, to sort of sum it up here, is that women who are in those positions where they focus solely on their beauty and appearance are, as she sees it, oppressed. And what women should do is, instead of, being in such a situation where they're focused solely on their beauty and appearance, they should work on something significant and meaningful. Now, she doesn't advocate that women should be like ugly and repulsive. Rather, her view is that they should be focused on, not on beauty, but on doing things, being someone. So what's the problem with this sort of approach? Well, as Wollstonecraft sees it, a woman who, is proud of their weakness and accepts they must be protected and guarded from care and the rough toil of, of life, she claims that such women become insignificant and contemptible. And the problem for them is she considers sort of the classic problem of the trophy wife, or the model that's aging. Namely, if a person is simply offering, say, their beauty, time, of course, is very cruel. Beauty fades. If all a person has going for them is their looks, then, of course, they cannot be expected to be valued when all they have to offer, their beauty, fades. And she says, in quite an interesting quote, that it is the fate of the fairest flowers to be admired and pulled to pieces. Now, she expresses a concern that women won't listen to her, nor resign the privileges of rank and sex for the privileges of humanity. And her view is that she's concerned that sort of her worst opponents will be other women who don't want to give up that idle life of beauty for a life of work. Which, of course, is an interesting question. Interesting, in regards to who are the opponents of this view. Interesting enough, in our recent time, in our own time, some of the most vehement and devoted opponents of equality and feminism are women. Interesting enough. Now we turn to the final part of Wollstonecraft, namely her conclusion. Now, she says that men should assist in emancipating women, which of course raises the obvious question: what's in it for men? Because when you have a system of oppression or mistreatment, people typically don't do that just for the heck of it. They do it because they presumably see some advantage in doing so. And if someone is an oppressor and has this advantage, a good question is, of course, why should they give up this alleged advantage? Now, one obvious reason is, of course, the moral reason. If someone is engaged in oppression, then there would be, on the face of it, a moral reason to stop doing that. But, of course, there's also the question of what is the motivation for men themselves? If we operate from the assumption that this oppression of women is something that is allegedly advantageous for men, there'd have to be an incentive given, a motivation, to not only give this up, but take an active role in working with women to develop an equal society. So what do men get out of this, according to Wollstonecraft? Well, she claims that men would do this. They would get more observant daughters, more affectionate sisters, more faithful wives, more reasonable mothers, and better citizens. And that women would then love men with true affection, because they would learn to respect themselves. And she claims the peace of mind of a worthy man would not be interrupted by the idle vanity of his wife, nor would babes be sent to nestle in a strange bosom, never having found a home in their mothers. And so her view is basically, it'd be a better world for everyone. Which, of course, is a good question. Would this be, in fact, a better world for us all? And that brings us to the end of our brief look at Mary Wollstonecraft.